All right, so check this out. Donald Trump just had a disastrous impromptu press conference on the tarmac at Bedminster, New Jersey, after playing golf at one of his many properties for the past couple of days. And he was asked a lot of questions about California and what's taking place in Los Angeles. And his answers were either terrifying or just completely incompetent. So I want to show you some answers from this press conference. But first and foremost, I want to show you what took place at the end of the press conference. This is probably the best clip you're going to see all day, and it's Donald Trump stumbling while walking up the Air Force One steps. Now, take a look and we'll talk about it. Almost fully face planting, and here's a still from Ron Filipowski, a screenshot of Donald Trump almost falling, just so you can get a better view of him almost tripping. And I wanted to start with this video because I have an argument to make to MAGA, a point to make to MAGA. When Joe Biden did this, when Joe Biden fell as any human does, Republicans made a huge deal out of it. They said that Biden was declining, that he had a physical ailment, that there needed to be an investigation, and he needed to step down because he tripped, right? Donald Trump almost face plants while walking up the steps for Air Force One. And will we see the MAGA Republicans freak out? Will there be wall-to-wall coverage on Fox News for a week straight about Donald Trump falling? Probably not, because they're complete hypocrites on this topic, but I wanted to show you this clip because it took place immediately after Donald Trump had this press conference to give you an idea of just how disastrous it was. Now, let's dive into some of these questions where Donald Trump decided to threaten California officials with arrest. Have a look.
Very much. Do you have a question for Marco? Question for Marco?
California officials could face federal charges if they stand in the way of the deportation, something that Holman may have suggested.
If officials stand in the way of law and order, yeah, they will face charges. Thank you very much.
You heard him. If officials stand in the way of law and order, they will face charges. Now, what he means by that is if California resists deporting all of these people that Donald Trump wants to deport, he will try to bring federal charges against them. These people that we're talking about in question, for the most part, are innocent people who have no criminal record, have been working in the United States for decades, have American citizen family members here, are valued members of their communities. And if California is not like, hey, we want to deport all those people, Donald Trump is now threatening Governor Newsom, Mayor Karen Bass of Los Angeles with federal charges, wanting to drag them into federal court for no reason. The only person that has interfered with law and order in this conversation is Donald Trump, the 34-time count felon. That's him, only him, not Governor Newsom, not any mayor of any California city, only Donald Trump. This is as dictatorial as it gets. He's sending in the National Guard, threatening to send in the Marines, and now saying that if California officials don't bow down to him, they'll face federal charges. You don't see this in the United States. You see this in countries like Russia and dictators all around the world. Here's another clip where Donald Trump was once again criticizing the governor of California and threatening to send in troops, as he has done so often the past couple of days. Have a look.
It could have gotten much worse. You have an incompetent governor. Just take a look at the train stations that he's building. Like 20 times over budget. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. So I did call him the other night. I said, look, you got to take care of this. Otherwise, I'm sending in the troops. That's what we did. Thank you very much. Do you have a question for Marco?
See, what's especially interesting about Donald Trump's claim here is he's like, you have an incompetent governor, he can't get anything done. I called him the other night and said, you got to take care of this, otherwise I'm sending in the troops. And that's what he did, allegedly, according to him. He posted this at 2:41 in the morning last night, saying, great job by the National Guard in Los Angeles after 2 days of violence. Thank you to the National Guard for a job well done. Trust me, the middle is all a bunch of fluff from Donald Trump. So he's saying that the National Guard, him sending in the troops, really cleared up the situation. But in reality, as Gavin Newsom pointed out this morning on Twitter, for those keeping track, Donald Trump's National Guard had not been deployed on the ground when he posted this. So this whole rant that Donald Trump went on, complimenting the job that was done in California, he was really just unintentionally complimenting Governor Gavin Newsom and the way that he handled the situation. But of course, Donald Trump is too oblivious and too incompetent to know that. So he goes on these rants and saying, yeah, it was all me. I sent in the National Guard. I had the troops do it. It was all me that cleared it up. But in reality, that wasn't happening. There was no riots to clear up, and Gavin Newsom was handling the situation adequately. He just has no idea what's happening in the country that he's meant to be the president of. Now, we have another question here where Donald Trump is being asked, are you prepared to invoke the Insurrection Act? And take a look at his answer.
California, are you prepared to invoke the Insurrection Act?
Depends on whether or not there's an insurrection.
Do you believe there is, sir?
No, but you have violent people, and we're not going to let them get away with it.
Wow. Look, this answer was pretty scary. He says depends on whether or not there's an insurrection. The answer should have just been no from the beginning, right? It should have just been, no, of course I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that? There's nothing even close to that. But he kind of flirts with the idea a little bit, saying, well, depends on whether or not there's an insurrection. Donald Trump obviously couldn't define the word insurrection. He doesn't know what it means, couldn't spell it, couldn't define it, doesn't know how many letters are in the word. That's just Donald Trump. But the fact that he's even kind of just like putting a feeler out there with an answer just like this is pretty scary to me. And I think that if Donald Trump wants to, he will just do it. He won't even have to define what an insurrection is. He won't have to point to any evidence of that taking place. He'll just do it. And I just find it interesting that so many in the MAGA movement are saying that there's an insurrection taking place in California, but on January 6th, when there were people breaking into the Capitol and beating police officers, they said that that was a day of love. It's just insane. Here's another answer where Donald Trump was asked, what are the rules for engagement? And he's kind of talking about the possible insurrection that MAGA is talking about again. Have a look.
Do you foresee those protests spreading to other cities, Chicago, New York, for example, in the next few days?
Yes, we're going to be watching it very closely. And when they spit at people, you know, they spit. That's their new thing. They spit, and worse, you know what they throw at them, right? And when that happens, I have a little statement. They say, they spit, we hit. And I told them, nobody's going to spit on our police officers. Nobody's going to spit on our military, which they do as a common thing. They get up to them this far away, and then they start spitting in their face. That happens, they get hit very hard.
What are the rules of engagement for federal troops?
We'll see what happens. If we think there's a serious insurrection or less than that, we're going to have law and order. Very important.
How would you define an insurrection?
You have to really just have to look at the site. You have to see what's happening. Last night in Los Angeles, we watched it very closely. There was a lot of violence there. There was a lot of violence, and it could have gotten much.
What is he talking about? He's asked, how would you define an insurrection? And he's like, well, you just have to look at the scene. And he's talking about people spitting on police officers. Again, I just want to bring everybody's attention to the fact that on January 6th, police officers were being beat over the head with fire extinguishers, sticks, and things of that nature. And Donald Trump called it a day of love, said that those people were patriots and pardoned them. But when it comes to Los Angeles, when the LAPD is saying that protests were peaceful, that there was no mass unrest, as Donald Trump is claiming, then he says, well, you know, we might have to talk about what an insurrection is and go there. Now, the final clip I want to show you is he was asked, what's the bar for sending in the Marines after Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said that he might do that. He might send the Marines into Los Angeles. They're on high alert is what Pete Hegseth said. And he was asked what the bar to do that is, and just take a look at his answer.
Even if you don't plan to invoke the Insurrection Act, do you plan to send troops to Los Angeles?
What?
Even if you're not planning to invoke the Insurrection Act, do you still plan to send troops?
Well, we're going to have troops everywhere. We're not going to let this happen to our country. We're not going to let our country be torn apart like it was under Biden and his auto pen.
What's the bar for sending Marines to
The bar is what I think it is. I mean, if we see danger to our country and to our citizens, we'll be very, very strong in terms of law and order. It's about law and order.
I love how he's still running with the it's about law and order when he is the felon president. It's just the irony is too funny to not point out. But I'm so glad that he's being so specific here, saying, well, the bar is what I think it is. Pretty sure that's not the bar. Pretty sure that we have procedures in the federal government for Marines, members of the military, being sent into civilian locations. Now, Donald Trump wouldn't know that, but those procedures exist, those steps exist, and Trump is just kind of saying, well, to hell with the steps. The bar is what I think it is. It is insane that this is the president of the United States, and he's just saying this stuff so flagrantly, just so easily, just letting it fly right out of his mouth. It's insane. that this is taking place in the United States right now, and we have the National Guard surrounding Los Angeles. So I just wanted to show you Donald Trump's disastrous press conference today, and I think I'll leave this photo on the screen for the end of the video, just so everybody gets another look at it. But I'll leave the video there. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel down below. It goes an incredibly long way. Also, drop a like on the video and comment. Let me know what you think about this story. And as I always say, I greatly appreciate you, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.